And hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could be with us. Today, we're going to be talking with author Jacqueline J. Holness about her own writing journey, but also about the book you guys see here. It's called Destination Wedding. It's now out even as an audiobook. We're going to talk to Jacqueline not only about that, but also what it's been like for her to share the story of these three friends with the world. And now a new audience will be able to find them and actually be able to enjoy the story as they're on the go. We're going to go ahead and connect with our family on Amazon Live, and we'll start the conversation. And you're watching Cyrus Presents here on Amazon Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could be with us today. For those who are joining us on your desktop or on your laptop, you'll notice there's a follow button that is now beneath us. They've moved it on us. So you guys can be able to click there to be able to follow us here on Amazon Live and all of our programming. For those joining us on your mobile device, you'll notice that it is over on the side for you guys. Also, for those joining us on the desktop or laptop, you will notice the book for my next guest. I'm excited to welcome Jacqueline J. Holness to our program. Jacqueline is the author of this book I had a chance to read called Destination Wedding. We're going to talk to her not only about the writing of the book, but also this year she's done something special. It also is available. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it in the carousel there on Amazon. It's now available as an audiobook as well. We'll talk to her about what it was like for her to be able to hear her characters being brought to life that way. And of course, let you guys know how to stay connected with Jacqueline as well. Jacqueline, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Cyrus. I'm looking forward to this interview.
So the pleasure is definitely all mine. So let's talk about this experience first of all. I mean, I think for all writers out there, Jacqueline, to be published is one thing, right? The book it was already out both in print and Kindle. What was it like for you when you first heard the audiobook for the first time?
It was a very exciting experience. When you're writing, of course, you hear the words in your head. So you know how the dialogue sounds in your head, but to actually hear it outside of your head is a whole other matter. Um, you know, I thought the book was good when I wrote it, obviously. But when I heard it, I was like, oh, it really is good. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. You know,
And
it
they
is
brought
funny.
and they brought another dimension to it as well, because some of the things that some of the actresses emphasize, I didn't necessarily emphasize when I was writing it, but they interpreted as they read it, and I also enjoyed their interpretation as well.
You bring up an interesting point, Jacqueline, and that is about the way people kind of take things, right? Because myself, I'm a big physical book guy. I do Kindle only because I like the convenience of it when I'm traveling. But I know a lot of my friends who they consume books just as many as I may read. You know, as far as the hardcovers, they consume books. You know, when they're on the go through audiobooks. So I bring that up for this reason. I mean, talk to us about the decision to do a audiobook. What made you find that this was a time you wanted to be able to share these characters in a different platform?
Well, like you, I guess I started off just being really into print.
Yeah.
And then I evolved into other ways of experiencing a book as, time went along. And so when I self-published Destination Wedding at first. And so I really wasn't thinking about the audio, because the audio is a whole other art form. Just as it takes expertise to do your print and ebook, it takes a whole nother set of skills to do an audiobook. And I don't have those skills. So I was interested in getting it in audiobook, though, because I know that podcasts and audiobooks are really gaining in popularity. And so, while I was promoting the ebook and the print book, thankfully, an editor from Recorded Books reached out to me and basically asked me about the audiobook version, and it went from there. It was something that was on my radar, but I just didn't know how to even get started, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And I think that is a great reminder for I think other authors out there too, because you never know, for one thing, what may happen once a book is released, but also I guess being able to have it for a different audience as well, because people do enjoy books differently. So let's go back a little bit. We're going to dive into Destination Wedding here. For those who are just finding out about the book, Jacqueline, I did have a chance to read it, and I've already written my review for Amazon.
Oh,
So,
wow, thank you.
oh, sure. Have you always known that storytelling was something that you wanted to do?
Yes, I know it's pretty rare, but from the time I learned how to read, I always wanted to be a storyteller. I did start off wanting to write fiction when because of course, you read your kiddie books, and my father read books to me every night when I was a little girl. So I started off wanting to write those type of books. However, as I grew up, um, and started to be more advanced and started to read longer books, I recognized that it would take much more work than maybe I was ready for. And so by the time I was in fifth grade, I learned about journalism. And so that appealed to me because you could write, 500 and up, maybe at least 500, I guess, words, and that would constitute a finished product. So I decided I wanted to be a nonfiction storyteller professionally. And then eventually I got brave enough to get back to my original love, which is fiction, as a fiction storyteller.
Yeah. I said in my review, Jacqueline, that Destination Wedding is an interesting, I think, collab between what is real life for so many different people, but also because it's written in different perspectives, we're able to see how the different friends are kind of able to deal with individually what they're dealing with and also what their friends are dealing with. Where did the initial idea for the story came about? I know that part of the premise is we always hear these surveys and these stats about things. Was that kind of how this all started for you, or where did it kind of begin for you?
Well, it was very much inspired by my real life. As I said, I have a journalism background. I went to journalism school. And so, I've been I'm a voracious news watcher, news reader. And in December of 2009, in regarding my personal life, I was at a standstill. I had just broken up with a guy, and I thought it was going to work out, whatever that means. And but it wasn't working out, and so I was devastated, particularly because this was the second time that we had gotten together, and also because I had spent so much time prior to that. I felt trying to meet the proverbial one,
Yeah.
and so by the end of the month, I thought I had successfully made it through the Christmas season. The Christmas season is very romantic. It's cold outside. People are snuggling up inside. There's all this Christmas romance music and all that kind of stuff. But then just before Christmas, just days before Christmas, ABC News Nightline did a report about how 42% of Black women weren't getting married. And so, of course, that intrigued me because I was in that 42%. But then to make it even more just scary to me, they focused on women in Atlanta, and they focused on beautiful, women in Atlanta. One was an Atlanta Falcons cheerleader, and she was also an attorney running for state court judge, and she was having problems meeting, men. And so I thought to myself, if these women who are very accomplished and beautiful in my city are having problems, and a regular old girl like me, it's hard out here, And so I saw the report, and I was devastated. And but as fate would have it, within 3 months, 2 to 3 months of that report, I did meet and start dating the man who would become my husband. However, the report stayed with me. It was a succinct report, but it was very powerful. And so from that report, fictional characters started forming in my mind. And so I didn't necessarily know what to do with that. But as I planned my wedding, dating and planning my wedding, these fictional characters stayed with me. And then I said, you know what, I need to go ahead and write about these characters. So I did. So that's where
I
it
love
came
that.
from.
I love that, and I love the fact, Jacqueline, as you were talking, that it really shows how things that happen in life can spark our imagination. For one thing, especially if it's something that is intriguing, And I think that kind of really ties in well with the women that we meet in Destination Wedding. The thing that I thought was so interesting is something even that you hit on that you saw in real life, and that was that there are individuals out there who seem to have everything going for them. They have the career, they have the looks, they have friendship, yet they still feel like they are missing something. What I thought was interesting, I'm curious as to your thoughts about this, and I mentioned it in my review, I think, that so many times we let people, feel like let people make us feel like we are missing out on something when we could just be, going with the flow and letting things happen and not waiting on a timeline. What was it like for you to kind of explore with these friends that until they saw this, they seemed to be good, but then it seems like for them it became like a race against time.
You know, a lot of times, I mean, it's like going to the doctor, I think. I mean, when you go to the doctor, you're thinking that everything is okay, but there may be something, that's going on with your body that you may not have realized is an issue. And I think, for some women, not all women, we're just going along and we're just living life, and we're not having a bad time per se, but we're just living life. But then we wake up in the middle of our 30s, and realize that we haven't actually met that person. I know for me, I always, as a child, I always dreamed about my career aspirations. I didn't necessarily dream about my family aspirations. But as I got older, and I recognized that it wasn't happening as quickly as I wanted it to, time waits for no one. And you recognize that, for women, not for men, if you want to have children, there's, there's a specific time period that's possible. You want to be able to have energy for your marriage and your children. I always thought, time, when you're 21, time just seems like it's just this long stretch ahead. But when you're 35, it definitely changes. So I would say, for women, what I would do if I could go back and talk to my 21-year-old self, I would say be intentional. If marriage, marriage is not for everyone, but if you do want to be married and have kids, be intentional about it as you are about your career. And I definitely was intentional about my career. So if that answers your question.
Definitely does. Definitely does. And we're going to dive more into these characters you introduced us to, Jacqueline. I want to say for those who are just tuning in, and I see you guys over there on the Facebook side as well as on the Amazon Live side, you all are watching Cyrus Webb Presents. Jacqueline J. Holness is our guest for this segment. She's the author of this book. I have the print edition. It's Destination Wedding. It actually is at a really good price right now here on Amazon. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the paperback in the carousel there. But you can also get the Kindle edition, and now this year, she's now also added the audiobook as well. You all can get it there. If you guys do not have Audible, you can get it free, actually with a free trial of Audible as well. So make sure you guys do take a look at that. I'm highlighting the Audible again there in the carousel. So Jacqueline, I want to talk to you about the other thing I thought about that was interesting about these ladies, and that was you were able to let us see more about their personalities, their own struggles, but also how they had to come to grips with not only truth for themselves, but also the truths of others. What was it like for you to explore with these three main characters?
Well, coming from a journalism background, I want everything to really read as real. And so I thought about my best friends, my circle of girlfriends that I have. And I don't know about you and your friends. I don't know how guys do it necessarily, but you know, the I can always tell who has texted me by what that particular person says. So even if their name was not attached, I know their voice. I know how the words that they choose. I know how they express themselves. So I took that knowledge of my friends and applied it to these characters. I wanted to make these characters so real that even if they didn't have their name atop of a section, you could read the section and know which character it was by their word choices, by how they thought about things, by the decisions that they made. So in exploring these characters, I really did rely on my friendships with my girlfriends. You know, I've had these same girlfriends now for over 20 years, and I know them pretty well. So I wanted to know my characters as well as I know my friends. So it was similar to that.
And I think too, Jacqueline, I'm so glad you mentioned that because about the voices, because we do get to throughout the book, Destination Wedding, we're able to get to know their voices, but also the way they respond to things. I think, the other fun thing that comes across in this book is, as we're kind of thinking about time, you made time very, a very big part of this book as we're going about. Was that kind of like the reminder of, for one, how quickly time can passes, but also how much craziness can happen in such a short amount of time.
Well, a deadline, as I said, I come from a journalism background, and to me, a deadline always gets me going. By nature, unfortunately, one of my bad characteristics is I'm a procrastinator. So if someone gives me a deadline, no, I always meet my deadlines. There's something about that deadline that forces me to really hone in on the actions that I need to take to get a task finished. And so I wanted to give these women a deadline because I wanted them to apply the skills that they've used in their professional life to what they would use in to use those same skills in their personal life. And I think each of these women were ambitious when it comes to their professional life in their own ways. They might not have plotted out everything in the same way. Mimi was more lackadaisical than the others, for instance, but they were all very thoughtful about how they approached their career, and they assigned times to things. And so I wanted them to have that in their personal life. And then also, when you put a deadline on something, you may do something crazy that you ordinarily wouldn't do if you had time to really think it through. So I also wanted to add the deadline because, you do get crazy when you have something, a time to meet something, and either you drop dead or you meet the deadline. So
We can talk around this if you want to, Jacqueline, so we don't spoil it for those who haven't read it. But I will say this too: even though the book is, I mean, it really is entertaining in the way that we're able to see how these women are trying to navigate life and love. Real life happens to them. Some things happen along the way. There are serious things that, I mean, that can change their lives. They're having to deal with that, making hard decisions. But the fact that they had their friends there with them, I think, says a whole lot. So, what was that like for you? That even in the book, that was entertaining to really talk about some of some of the hard things that do happen in life, and how important it is to have people in your corner during those times.
well, I'm glad you brought up that it was entertaining because I did want to fold in um, poignant experiences in entertainment. I didn't want it to be like the premise of the book sounds so gloom and doom. I know it's like, oh, here comes another negative statistic about Black people, specifically Black women. Oh my gosh, I think people automatically assume that once you start getting into statistics, it's going to be a very serious read. And I did fold in some serious issues in there, but I also wanted to make it really fun. And I hope that I achieved that because I wanted, everything that's serious, you can still approach it in a lighthearted manner. And so, um, with your girlfriends, that's what the best thing about having good friends is about. Even when you come across serious things that happen in your life, when you have your girlfriends, it makes everything better, and you could always figure out a way to make it fun or joke about it, even when it's something that's serious. So.
Did you find for yourself that there was one? I mean, now that I think people know about your own journalism background, I think people may kind of think that you're more connected with one of the main characters than the other. But did you find yourself finding something about all three? I'll ask the question that way, that you can kind of resonate with.
I think there's one character that I probably identify with the most, mostly because of her commitment to her faith. But I folded in some of my characteristics in the three single women, most definitely, so there's a little bit of me in each one. Even though I'm sitting here very prim and proper, I do have a crazy side like Mimi, so I won't tell you which things that she did that I did as well, but there were a few things that she did that I did. Like Jarena, I do have a religious side that's very important to me. And let's see, I think all my characters are Mimi, Jarena, I'm having a brain fart here. My businesswoman, I'm definitely like her in that I plot out my life. I interviewed Stacey Abrams, if you're here in Georgia, you know her, probably know her nationally as well. But she said that she created a spreadsheet and of her life and starting from 17. I didn't do it in such a methodical way, but I have done that to a certain extent. So I do kind of plot out where I want to be professionally. Sonalda's who I was thinking of. I had to get my own book. Sonalda is a very, all about business, and I do have an all about business side of me as well. So I folded in some of my characteristics to eat in each one. So.
I will say, Jacqueline, I was trying to help you, but I forgot I had myself muted to make sure we weren't getting extra feedback. I was trying to help you out with Sonalda, but I think, and again, that is what makes this book so cool. So I definitely, for those who have not picked it up already, I want to encourage you guys. Of course, right now, this year in particular, I'm going to highlight it again. It is really the big highlight is the audiobook that is now available. But if you guys are individuals, you like to be able to pick up the book, read it, be able to thumb through the pages, you can get the print edition right now for only $10. $10 right now. The Kindle edition is only $3. So for you Kindle readers out there, you guys can get the Kindle edition. Also want to mention, you'll notice in the carousel, we do have the Kindle for Android as well as iPhone and for PC. If you guys don't own a Kindle, you don't need it to be able to read it on your particular device. But also, of course, if you have, a love for audiobooks, the audiobook is available right now. You all can take advantage of that. And again, if you don't have Audible, as part of the free trial, you can get this book by Jacqueline Holness completely for free. So definitely take advantage of that. Jacqueline, really appreciated you stopping by today to talk to us about the journey and also Destination Wedding. How can our audience stay connected with you?
Well, my main website is afterthealtarcall.com. That's AFTERALTARCALL.com. So that's my website and blog site. You can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jackie H. Writes. That's WRITES. And then Facebook, Facebook/J Holness. So any of those places you can find me.
I have to ask you the story. What's the story behind the website name? I know there's a story behind it.
Well, like I told you, Jarena is a religious character, and so it's kind of based on my religious life. And so when I decided to become a Christian when I was in my early 20s, I wanted to know what life was like after the altar call. You build up, I've given my life to the Lord. I'm going to live, according to my Christian faith. And you walk up to the front of the church and do that at the altar. But then, what happens after that? So I blog about everything that happens after the altar call. And this, it could get really messy. So, yeah. So I talk about I'm a pop culture fanatic. So I talk about pop culture as it relates to religious faith and relationships and all that kind of stuff, the intersection or the cross section of all of those things. So.
Well, I appreciate you stopping by the program today, Jacqueline. Glad we could have you. Congratulations again on Destination Wedding and looking forward to chatting with you again.
Thank you so much, Cyrus. Thank you. I appreciate the time and opportunity to speak with you.
Oh, the pleasure is definitely all mine. For those that are tuning in on the Amazon Live side, I want to remind you again, you all can be able to click below in the carousel to be able to get Jacqueline's book in its various forms. You can get the paperback as I have it. You can get the Kindle edition. But also right now, this year, she's released the audiobook as well. So you guys can actually listen to the book, have it narrated to you. There are different actresses there that are helping to tell the story, so you can able to see the different voices there as you're going along. So definitely take advantage of that. If you're not joining us on the Amazon Live platform and you are tuning in on either Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, you will notice the link that is with this broadcast. You all can head over to Amazon to be able to get the book for yourselves. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, thank you all for tuning in to Cyrus Webb Presents. We look forward to seeing you guys again. Take care.